The reason for the Marvel's MCU delay worse than thought? Well, no real surprise there, huh? But anyway, let's take a look. So here we are at Cosmic Book News, which has summarized the details. So let's see. Recently we saw Disney and Marvel announce a new release date for the Marvels as they pushed the flick back a second time with a delay of 4 months from a summer July release date to November 10th. The Wrap reported on the new release date and offered that the delay was to give the film more time for post-production. Sound familiar? Which is something that fits well with all of the reports surrounding Marvel's VFX problems, such as with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Well, you see, the problem is when you keep doing the visual effects and you go, change it, and then you do it again, change it, and then the clock runs out, you know? And you remember all those stories about the CGI artists having meltdowns and stuff because they're working them to death? And a bunch of them say, I just don't want to do an MCU movie anymore. Imagine that. Yeah, there's got to be a reason for it. So anyway, it was figured that since the Marvels was given more time for post-production, that it was about the visual effects. Well, so there's going to be a lot of visual effects in it. And sure, I'm sure that does factor into it. But, however, the real problem might not just be with visual effects. That's true, because the real problem is not that's the reason why Quantumania failed. No. Heard tell it's a crappy movie. So you could have great special effects and still people would be like, this is stupid. Especially when you spend a good chunk of it tearing down your hero. Anyway, that's another story. So, according to YouTuber Grace Randolph, well, you know, sometimes, yeah. So she says the Marvels was pushed from Son of the Wind due to poor audience test scores. Oh, here we go again. The test scores. And keep hearing about those a lot, especially poor Aquaman, which sounds pretty hopeless. Oddly enough, most of the reports from the test screenings are rather poor and downright awful. With the only exception being The Flash, starring Ezra Miller. Imagine that. Strange times, huh? Well. So she says, I mean, everyone loves Paul Rudd, Jonathan Majors, and Michelle Pfeiffer. Well, yeah, but with Brie Larson and Iman Vellani. Now, look. I actually like Iman Vellani. I don't have a problem with the girl. And I liked her show. I thought it was pretty good. But nobody watched it. Just me and a couple others. So I don't think that's fair to lop her in with the likes of Brie Larson, who did it to herself just in her public statements and whatnot, you know? But I don't even blame Brie Larson for the failures of Captain Marvel. Actually, the Captain Marvel movie, it starts off kind of interesting. There's some good points here and there that they could have followed up on, but didn't. It just ends with her becoming God and blowing everything up, you know? And they didn't serve her well. But that's on them, not her, you know? I really don't. I rarely blame the actors for the failure of a movie, certainly within the structure of its story. That's never going to be the actor's fault, unless it's script by Brie Larson, you know, and then, well, then, yeah, she bears a lot of responsibility for it. But ultimately, she doesn't. I don't really care if she's a total a-hole or not. As long as she shows up and does the job, it doesn't matter. So that's how that works. So Randolph continued. So while Disney refuses to admit defeat publicly, I think behind the scenes it's downright sauna. Yeah, so they're sweating. Randolph recommended Disney to fire Rick and Morty writers, including Quantumania writer Jeff Loveness, off Avengers: The Kang Dynasty. Well, geez, gotta agree with Grace here. That sounds like probably a good move, because this is supposed to be your next big Avengers movie, and got this guy. So you got to prove yourself, you know. Does he have a big hit in movies? Does he have a big hit in, you know, action adventure movies? Or was he just somebody who knew the right people and got the job and that sort of thing, you know? Yeah. So anyway, the claims about the Marvels testing poor with audiences are backed up by giant freaking robot. Well, again, sometimes. Oh, well, anyways, they're getting nervous about the poor test screenings. Yeah, it must be really bad. I don't know if anyone walked out of the theater, you know, like they did with Aquaman. Ooh, jeez. Ooh. But anyway, probably should have left Batman in it. But anyway, talking about this is worrisome because they're worried that Marvel is going to follow the fate of Star Wars after what happened to it after Last Jedi. And that's likely and may have already happened. I think it has, because they've had several just awful films. And it's practically 2 years of that. And you had one weird aberration with Spider-Man. That was great. And that's it. So your next hit would be perhaps Guardians of the Galaxy. But then that's it. You know, it moves on. Then after that, you got to wait till Spider-Man and Deadpool show up. And then Deadpool is like a goodbye thing, it looks like. So then it's Spider-Man. But that's a long wait. And will anyone show up? Those will just be standalone movies by then, you know. Just seems the whole idea of following the MCU story is brought down by this crap. And the destruction of films that should have been great. Doctor Strange should have been great. It wasn't. Thor should have been great. It wasn't. That could have helped you out, but you couldn't help yourselves. You destroyed it. As for the Marvels, I don't think it had much of a chance. There was never any interest in Carol Danvers and all that, especially how, you know, they Mary sued her and all that stuff. And then on top of, you know, Bree's idiot statements to begin with, she wasn't liked. But then you didn't deliver a good story arc for this character. She wasn't weaved in like you did like Black Panther. Black Panther was weaved in exactly right. In fact, his Civil War appearance, I think, is the best for Black Panther. But you didn't do that with Carol Danvers. You could have weaved her in through some of your space, like Guardians, that she was out there, and then eventually she connects with some of them. But there's all kinds of stuff with the character that's just completely gone. You know, the whole thing between her and Iron Man and all that stuff. Just you're never going to deal with it. So it was just shoehorned in, and that's not going to sit well. And you're trying to act like there's some huge backstory that we've all seen that's going to connect all these characters, and there really isn't. You know, it's just shoehorned and slapped in. That's too bad. But yeah, I like the Marvel Girl actress. I thought she did a good job in her show. And I did like the lady playing Monica Rambeau, who was the original first female Captain Marvel from the 80s, you know, back in the horrible, horrible 80s when there was no representation for non-whites and stuff, you know. Yeah. But she was a good actress until they screwed up WandaVision and forced her to deliver that god-awful line. But again, it's not her fault. It's Kevin Feige's fault, because he takes credit for all that stuff about how he sabotaged that show. Because the original plot involved Doctor Strange, but you couldn't have that because, you know, he's a man and white. So, yeah. Probably what led them to destroy Doctor Strange, because the original director walked away. Yeah, there was probably good reason for that. So anyway, there you go. The Marvels, what are you going to do, you know? Just never release it? Dump it on D+, that bleeds subscribers. So yeah, it's not looking too good. You know, and it's one of those things. It's got this Mount Everest hill to climb, because even if you did have some interesting story for it, would anybody show up at this point? Because a lot of damage has already been done. That's too bad. Oh well, best of luck, Marvels.